Hello again and welcome to another Articulate Outburst podcast. We're going through the offcuts of the band's kind of, as the missus says, ramblings of an old man. We're into the last section of the concepts, completed songs, ideas for albums 1 and 2. Just really to kind of do a bit of a run around. As to regards, I'll just move myself a little bit nearer me. Microphone lead seems to be swinging in the wind. So what I'm going to do is, obviously, refreshment is key. And I just propose to go through this file as it is. So what we've got here is, I can see straight away, off the bat, a new song. It's actually going to be on album number 2. That's Obstacles in My Way. I can see that the dark writing is what I wrote. The green writing is obviously at the educator's house. I recognise his signature green pen. Obviously, with him being an educator, that might be a clue as to why he uses green. Don't really want to go into this one too much because I don't want to spoil the surprise in the second album. As I said, it's a lot more eerie, a lot more creepy, a little bit more nuanced. Obviously, we've matured musically from the first album, and the first album's pretty much about smashing down the door. Second album's very much more nuanced, cleverer, more subtle as we develop as musicians. As I said, this project was started on the back of a fag packet and has just matured into what we see today. So Obstacles in My Way, I'll leave for now, but obviously it's a completed song from our point of view. There are a few tweaks and touches, so I guess I'll come back to that when, as and when. Here's an interesting one. This is Snowflake. I always struggle with the lyrics to Snowflake because I've changed the bloody words that many times that you start to forget what's the current version. And I generally have the lyrics on stage with me, just at the foot, at the base of the microphone. If you ever come to see us live, you will definitely see sheets of music. It's not for the whole of the words, but the first line of each verse. I kind of know it after that, but I sometimes forget. Looking at this, you can see there's some edits even on this. Autumn's Here, it's Mild Outside Boy. Well, that's changed to it. Autumn's Here, it's Cold Outside Boy as we evolve into winter. Snowflake obviously was always going to be made. It's how we made it and to what beat. We chose a reggae beat in the end, which I think is a tip in the hat to the old school punk of the Clash and to a certain extent the Police, who was arguably punk when they first started. Yeah, a few changes here. It was originally computer switched on, get ready to tweet boy, and I've switched it to phone switched on, get ready to tweet boy, because phone seems to be the most common appliance people use now. Falling apart boy, melting boy, yeah, absolutely. They're all in the wrong order, but they're effectively the words that we use today. And I just know by this well-worn out bit that this has been on stage a few times, and certainly the way it's folded suggesting an inside pocket of a jacket, which will have been taken on stage at some point. We've actually got a date there, September 2021. That might not necessarily be the date, because I bought, for some reason, a calendar, and I worked it out that it was a student calendar that just did the student term. So some of the dates don't actually add up. I've just used it as a notepad. So what else have we got in here? So eco-terrorists, or eco-terrorism, as it looks like it was originally called. Again, this is a second album track. There's a half of an A3 sheet, 2 lots of A5. Looking at the words, again, this is when it says eco-terrorism or eco-terrorist, we're not talking about those numpties that chain themselves to the pavement and railings and try to stop everybody going about their everyday business. Eco-terrorism are those that are driving that narrative. I looked back the other day on a the end of the world is nigh, from the turn of the century, repent thy sins. And this has been an ongoing prophecy of doom since the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And I just thought, and on every single occasion, it's to benefit the perpetrators of said message. And you've been around long enough, you think four horsemen of the apocalypse was the Bible, repent ye sins, the end of the world is nigh, another church grift to get you in there. And I can't help thinking a lot of this green agenda is yet another grift. We know that the rainforests were originally the problem and global warming was the key. Obviously we're on a cooling planet, so that narrative had to change. And then it was the hole in the ozone, we're all going to be baked alive by the sun's rays. Yeah, and then now it's, well, climate change, because everybody gets weird weather, they always have had. But now we can pinpoint it down to this is us, this is our fault. And obviously every single thing seems to be pushing us towards that. From the very people who don't observe it themselves, oddly enough. So, eco-terrorist, I'll just give you the first lines, a bit of a taste. Well, if we can find the first lines, yeah. What would happen with an impure thought? Just putting it out there gets you caught. What if we all know it's a lie? What if this world's not going to die? And I think it pretty much goes on like that. You know, let's ask the questions. This is punk rock. It'll always swim against the narrative. It'll always take the corollary view. It always will, and as it should do, because that's how one thrashes out any blips in anybody else's argument. If you argue the other side or argue the opposition, like we were taught at school back in the day to argue both sides of a political argument in order for you to shape your own views, I just think that the green agenda, the climate change denier, and all the other stuff that you get fed, and if the old jibby-jabby is anything to be learned by, trust absolutely nobody in control. Absolutely none of them. They do not have our best interests at heart. Okay, quite timely, let's move on. Here is 1984, again another second album track. Interestingly enough, these are the kitchen roll that I put in between the stuck on letters, the artwork that we were going to put together to stop them sticking together and for letters didn't fall off or land on another sheet of paper. So I'll keep these for posterity as well. But yeah, moving into 1984, what have we got here? So 1984, I think I mentioned on that first grid, was always going to be an issue. And it can be a little bit trite mentioning Orwell, and he's been overused over the years, but he's never been more relevant than he is today. I mean, you never really understood when we were taught at school, because it wasn't exactly the sharpest tool in the box, what a lot of his thoughts were, and who controls the past controls the future, who controls the present controls the past. Well, obviously I've lifted that directly as an Orwell quote. I've also lifted, if liberty means anything at all, tells people what they don't want to hear. That's another Orwell quote. I think that's actually on the BBC headquarters. Not that they ever adhere to that anymore. But the idea that if the past stops, when people think of history as being linear, cavemen, industrial revolution, us, going towards a kind of future, but if you all of a sudden didn't have any past or any lampposts along the road that you're travelling, looking back, to live in an ever present, which is what Orwell was cleverly trying to explain. It's incredibly clever, and we know that history's been rewritten. We know the revisionists are going back. We know that our eternal sin is slavery in the empire, despite the fact that we stamped slavery out. It's conveniently forgotten. And stamped it out for everybody else, not just ourselves. Completely forgotten. But yeah, so 1984 had to come back round, and I don't know whether this is because we've got more communication, powers that be have got in charge of that communication. If we look at Twitter as a perfect example, that the minute it wasn't free speech, it was incredible what you could and couldn't say on it. Musk has obviously taken it over. If he makes a success of it, he does. But the minute those levers of control were taken off the other side, the outrage mob were out in force, and I'm thinking, So you want to control the public square? Well, obviously you have to be used to things other people think and say. This idea that we must have one narrative is beyond the pale. So I've mixed Orwell's words with those words of my own. Very eerie. Probably some of the best guitar we've played. Again, don't want to ruin it. Don't want to ruin it at all. So I'm going to leave that there for another future stream. Obviously, I'll put it on the list of topics to talk to the educator about. And then I think we're at the end of this. So let's have a look. We've got, so blue check marks. Again, another scribbled piece of paper with the ramblings of an old man on. A lot of people did email in actually to say that I was clearly shocked when the missus came in and they noticed a distinct change in my tone and nervousness. That doesn't go away. She hates everything to do with the band. And she certainly won't be watching any of these videos. But either way, so we digress. So here we go. This is blue check marks. Now, it was my idea for the song, but the educator wrote the lyrics. I'd kind of said for quite some time that just having a tick and a blue check mark on Twitter was, no named you our leaders. This kind of celebrity and obsessiveness with kind of people who have a certain amount of followers and stuff. Oh, we've got 1 million followers. Like that in some way makes them some kind of spokesman for something. Don't say that those 1 million followers are clever people. You don't know. So anyway, blue check marks was pretty much, you've not been voted in. You've not got any special degree. You're not an intelligent person. And that's what it was all about. Looking at the ramblings on this, and this is early work. None of these are lyrics, by the way. But it kind of gives you a bit of a terminology as to what we were on about. Virtue signalling. I think that's just about every BBC presenter known to man. Aye. Hypocrisy and double standards. Looks like I'm still with the BBC presenters. Protest easy targets. It's getting worse. Take the money and close your eyes. Really, I like that one. Pretend this is a non-cause for financial gain. So quite a few disjointed statements on here. And what I write is, if I've got, say for example, we'll use 1984 as an example, I'll write 4 pages. Nothing is a chorus, nothing is a verse. That sounds weird, but all the ramblings will be just written out with points I want to get across in a song. I'll then listen to what the educator's guitar is saying, and then we'll either compress them, add a bit, or squeeze them to fit what that music is. Because we've got this many lyrics, we can always end up with this many lyrics in the song without deviating away from the point of the song. The point of the song obviously is Articulate Outburst, but we're always pointing our fingers at some target or other. Generally one that's Hippocratic, developed certain hypocrisies and double standards, to put it mildly, or some of the just straight absurdities of what we are knowingly told to believe, despite what our eyes can see categorically to be true for ourselves. So I then compress that into a song. So yeah, you can see there's quite a lot of stuff going on here, and then eventually that will be a 3-verse or a 4-verse song. So blue check marks was the educator actually came up with the lyrics for this. And he hasn't done a bad job. But again, that's on the next album. Don't really want to cover that here, but I just wanted to go through the offcuts, the concepts, almost like an Articulate Outburst scrapbook, to be fair. Obviously, there were some surprises in here for me, and some surprises in there for the educator. But when we get to the band interviews, we'll see what he's got to say about that. But thanks very much for all your support, all your emails. Thanks, keep contacting me, good, bad or indifferent. I've got thick skin. It takes a lot to injure me. Criticism's always welcome, as is compliments. info@articulateoutburst.co.uk, and I'll see you in the next stream. Thank you.